A boy is hiding in a dumpster, crippled and dying. Outside, a horde of zombified monstrosities claw at the container, hoping to tear the child to shreds. And sitting next to the boy is this thing, a small dog-like creature with a chainsaw sticking out of its head. The boy, whose father died after racking up a number of debts, has been forced to work for the Yakuza in order to repay them. Though initially alone and hopeless, the boy discovered the injured creature, a devil, and nursed it back to health. Together, the two took on odd jobs, chopping trees and slicing up other devils, in the hope of repaying the boy's inherited debt. Only to discover that the Yakuza they had been working for was under the control of an immensely powerful zombie devil who now seeks to destroy the two and add them to its collection. And, in their last moments of desperation, the two make a deal, a contract, and become one. Together, the two now stand as one unstoppable entity, the boy for the first time finally able to set about completing his singular lifelong goal: eating jam on toast. This is Chainsaw Man. Chainsaw Man is a series that's been published in Weekly Shonen Jump magazine since late 2018. Created by Tatsuki Fujimoto, author of the similarly extreme underground hit Fire Punch, it has been one of the magazine's most popular stories of recent years. Recently, it's been announced that Chapter 97, which is actually coming out today as I record this, will be the final issue of Part 1 of the series, coinciding with the announcement of the series' anime. It will also coincide with the move to Shonen Jump Plus, which makes sense because a lot of it's maybe too PG-13 for Weekly's target demographic. I've been thinking of making a video on this manga for a while because I love it, and this seemed like as good an opportunity as any. Big warning, minor spoilers ahead. I've tried to leave out any major plot ones, but I highly recommend going in knowing as little as possible because some of the stuff hits so strongly. I read it all in about 2 afternoons, and even if you only read about 4 chapters a day, it would probably take just over 3 weeks to catch up, so really I'd recommend just binging it yourself. Keep this video on in the background because the YouTube algorithm, please, I need the watch time, Chainsaw Man is a series set in 1980s Japan, only in this world, devils exist. And not only do they exist, but they're bloody everywhere. Each devil corresponds to a specific object or concept in our world, or more specifically, each acts as the physical embodiment of humanity's collective fear towards that object. For example, the car devil would embody the collective fear that people held towards cars, and would likely be fast, reckless, and hit very hard, since that's what people associate cars with. On the other hand, the coffee devil would be small, weak, and pretty smelly, since not many people hold an intense dread towards coffee. In order to stop the world being overrun by devils, each nation has a governmental branch of devil hunters who are tasked with keeping order and disposing of devils once they appear. But how is one meant to defeat a devil, you ask? Well, if you're lucky, or unlucky depending on how it goes, some devils are willing to make contracts with people, offering them certain penalties in return for some degree of their power. These contracts are kind of the superpowers of the series, with each person tending to have slightly different contracts from those around them. But unlike a lot of shonen series, some people share the same contracts with the same devils, leading to a lot of interesting matchups during fights. It's one of these governmental units that Denji joins, having been recruited by the high-ranking and widely renowned devil hunter Makima, with the promise of 3 square meals and a bed. Most people would ask for more in return, since, you know, those are the very basic necessities that humans need to live. But Denji is not most people. Denji is a 16-year-old boy who, as previously established, has absorbed the heart of the Chainsaw Devil. He's cocky, he's dumb, he's brash, and overall, he's a little bit of an asshole. Denji's past of self-reliance and servitude has left him completely apathetic to the wider world and even to those around him. You could warn him of the impending threats to humanity and incoming societal revolutions that would make any other shonen protagonist jump for joy, but Denji as a character is far less likely to be motivated by the threat of certain death than he is by the promise of a stick of gum. Sure, he'll save the day, but only when he remembers that he's been promised a free meal. Otherwise, he's quite content to take a nap and worry about his intestines being torn out by a Lovecraftian terror later. And this apathy is visualized by one of Denji's key abilities. As a devil hybrid, he can heal any and all injuries automatically by ingesting blood. even his own, helpfully. Meaning that for the most part, he doesn't face any physical consequences to his actions. I've heard a lot of people describe Chainsaw Man, particularly in its later chapters, as a nihilistic story, and when viewing Denji at first glance, I get that. However, I feel that Denji's outlook, and really the basis of the whole story, is more Epicurean. Epicureanism is, basically, the philosophy that life is all about simple pleasures. Think of the dude from The Big Lebowski who takes all of the shit thrown at him and then simply abides. This philosophy guides Denji's actions throughout much of the plot, particularly in the earlier chapters, and honestly makes him an incredibly charming and frankly relatable character. Sure, it's great fun to watch Luffy strive towards his goal of being the Pirate King, or Naruto becoming the biggest ninja. I haven't watched it. But these goals are so lofty and enigmatic that by comparison, Denji's ultimate desire of touching a boob is laughable and yet incredibly endearing. I worry at this point I haven't made it clear enough just how great a protagonist Denji is. Denji is the kind of guy who thinks wearing glasses makes you smarter and can only read or write the word balls. He's also the kind of guy who'll wait for a devil's testicles to regenerate just so he can kick them again, and who'll ride a shark into a tornado. But he's also the kind of guy who'll give a flower to a sobbing girl and find himself crying at movies even when he can't understand why. He's a fabulously entertaining character who's dumb, hot-headed and selfish, yet also manages to be complex, compassionate, and even at times cunning in his own stupid way. But the real fascination in Denji is when all of these various parts of him come together and ultimately clash. Despite his drive for individual pleasures and disregard of social norms, he finds himself longing for relationships with others. Whilst at first he assumes that he's merely looking for sexual gratification, he slowly comes to realise that what he desires truly is a genuine, intimate relationship. And it's these relationships he finds that make up the heart of Chainsaw Man. Aki is, in a lot of ways, the polar opposite of Denji. Originally assigned as his partner, the pair took an instant dislike to one another, with Aki kneeing him in the gut as a warning. Denji retaliated by kicking him in the nuts, and the relationship just kinda went downhill from there. But in many ways, the series is more about Aki's journey than it is about Denji's. Whilst Denji reacts with a troubling apathy to most situations, Aki has the opposite problem. He finds himself unable to shrug off the pain and suffering that surrounds his chosen life as a devil hunter. Unlike Denji and our third protagonist, Aki is fully human, meaning each action and interaction that takes place has the potential to affect him permanently. This sense of permanence is heightened by the fact that he has based most of his devil contracts on giving up his lifespan, meaning he knows exactly how long he has left to live, with each fight drastically reducing that number. Aki as a character actively craves the apathy and nihilism that define his fellow devil hunters, yet finds himself only caring more and more as the story develops. And it's this journey, not of Aki developing as a person, but coming to accept his innate humanity, that defines his role in the story, as well as creates the perfect foil to Denji and their mutual partner slash sister slash Lord Exalted Ruler and Queen of the world. Power is a fiend, which is basically a devil that has taken over a human body. This gives the devil a second chance at life in exchange for weakening it drastically, as well as imbuing it with some more human characteristics, such as a human body, a love of animals, and a hatred of vegetables. Power is introduced as a loud, boastful and cowardly figure who will mock her compatriots and hype up her own abilities, only to turn around and play dead at the first sign of trouble. And she's the best! But whilst at first it seems like she's something of a one-note character, with these features being her only personality traits, it slowly becomes apparent that there is a lot more to her character than first meets the eye. She notices little things about the people around her that others don't. Denji's propensity to swallow anything that enters his mouth, Kishibe's chronic alcoholism, and she's the only character shown to remember Denji's birthday. Though her personality remains much the same throughout the story, she develops in a wider, far more gradual way, eventually coming to treat Denji and Aki as sort of siblings. One of the major draws to Power within the story for me personally is how explicit it is made that her and Denji are not sexually or romantically interested in each other in any way. The two of them become incredibly close, constantly bickering and fighting, yet often going along with a plan purely because the other agrees to it. Every step of the way, if Denji's there, Power is too, and Fujimoto's constant reiteration that the relationship is purely platonic, or even familial, is something I find particularly sweet. Before continuing, there's probably one more character I should talk about. Makima is the devil hunter who recruits them. But one of the most distinct aspects of Chainsaw Man in my mind would have to be the fights. Of course, in a series where the main character has the power of chainsaws, you'd expect the conflicts to be bloody and brutal, which they certainly are. But what separates the battles in Chainsaw Man to other shonen series I've seen is their pace. Almost every fight in the series is resolved in only a couple of chapters. When a character in Chainsaw Man hits, they hit hard. These characters are monsters with unbelievable magnitudes of power behind them, meaning you don't get the long drawn out and dialogue heavy confrontations of most shonen series. Instead, conflicts are quick, impacts are heavy, and consequences are instant. And this incredible tempo and rhythm means that when Fujimoto chooses to go all out in a fight, he truly does go all out, creating some of the most intense and visceral images I've seen in a long while. And frankly, I would be remiss to speak about the imagery within the series without touching on the main genre behind it. I somehow haven't really mentioned this before, but Chainsaw Man, besides being your typical action shonen series, is, to a large extent, a horror. The series employs every style of horror in the playbook. Grotesque body horror, monstrous supernatural entities, intense realism like terrorists and serial killers, and it even contains some images which invoked more existential dread in me than any horror film I think I've ever seen. The imagery within the series is intense, to say the least. This isn't your run-of-the-mill story aimed at pre-teens and up, it can get incredibly mature, and I mean like full nudity orgies, visceral child murder mature. But the true horror of the series comes from somewhere far more personal when it takes to exploring the characters' psyches themselves. Almost all of the characters in Chainsaw Man are sad, broken people. They are living in a world that, for the most part, has been overrun with a countless number of sadistic, otherworldly monstrosities, in which every day you have to pray you don't cross paths with one, or if you do, that someone smaller and weaker than you happens upon them before they can reach you. And as a result, the series often stops to relish in the pain felt by those living within its world. Perhaps my favourite example of this is in one chapter, after a number of established characters were suddenly and brutally killed. These are characters who'd all been introduced to us in recent arcs, with us getting to know each of them fairly well, many of whom have shared personal and intimate moments with Denji that further fleshed out both of them. And Denji is troubled by the realisation that he feels absolutely nothing about their deaths. In this moment, Denji grapples with the question of whether him selling his soul to a devil robbed him of his humanity and ability to truly emotionally connect with others, or whether his pained and isolated childhood had left him with that ability to begin with. It's these moments of quiet personal existentialism that really hit the absolute hardest. Kobeni suffering a panic attack as they realise they're trapped in an infinite Escher-esque hotel, Aldo seeing a childhood photo of the man whom he just murdered and breaking down crying, and Aki grabbing the hand of the angel devil, sacrificing years of his own lifespan purely because he was unwilling, or perhaps unable, to go through the mental distress of watching someone else die. One of the main phrases repeated throughout the series is "ignorance is bliss," and that concept, the idea that the more involved you are in something, the more you'll suffer, acts as a driving theme throughout. The series is about a man with chainsaws for arms. He'll never be able to get close to someone without them ending up hurt. Edward Chainsaw Hands. I really can't get too much deeper into this topic without spoiling some of the best and most shocking moments of the series, but I want to end the video on a final note. I know thus far I framed Chainsaw Man as an overtly depressing, brutal, and maybe even edgy series, and maybe that's a mistake. But I feel that many who approach it and are unprepared for what's in store may simply end up viewing it like that anyway. But there's something about the series that goes beyond this simple description, and it's in its far quieter, more hopeful moments. Power and Denji attempting to cook the group a revolting dinner containing a strange purple root. Kishibe, the stoic, brutal badass, agreeing to look after Meowie the cat and seemingly doing a good job of it. And Denji leaving a broken, grief-stricken Aki a single apple, as a sign that he's not alone. It's not always much, but it's the little moments that make Chainsaw Man what it is. In a series of pained, broken and isolated characters, it's the moment when they're not, when it truly displays how deeply these characters care for each other, that the series goes beyond its limits of simply a great manga to a monumental one. There was so much more I wanted to talk about in this video, and I didn't even get to talk about the world building and the other characters outside the main cast. I didn't even mention a single villain, but I'm gonna leave you with this. This year, I read One Piece, a 1,000 chapter story which is statistically speaking the most successful and popular comic in human history. It made me laugh, it made me cry, and it's left an impact on me that I think might be lifelong. At the same time, I read Chainsaw Man, which is less than a tenth of One Piece's length, and with a fraction of its success. And guess which one I'm making a video on? Read Chainsaw Man, please. Thanks for watching, please like, comment, subscribe, also apologies to Super Eye Patch Wolf. If you didn't notice, this video kind of took a lot of inspiration from his style of video making. I didn't really realise how much until I was halfway through editing, and he's a major reason why I make videos anyway, so please go check him out. The next one I'll try to make more my own. Bye bye!